Welcome to People Doing Good for Others, where we celebrate, praise, and honor those who truly are making significant contributions in our communities. I'm Gary York, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to be with you, and I want to thank you for joining us. We want to thank River Street Productions, Wilkes Communications, and WIFM for this opportunity. And we're honored today to have Ms. Glendora Yarbrough. She's the Executive Director of the Communities and Schools of Wilkes County. And we are honored to have her, and thank you very much to be here. And you were here almost a year ago, but there's some great things happening with your outreach today in ministry. So, Ms. Yarbrough, how about an opening as to what your outreach is doing today?
Well, first of all, I want to say the honor is strictly mine for being here. So thank you that you would invite communities and schools to be a part of the show this morning. I guess the biggest thing that's going on with communities and schools is that we're undergoing a name change. And I'd like to talk about that just a few minutes. The reason for the name change is Communities and Schools has been in Wilkes County since 1983. We started off as a very, very small organization. We were called Wilkes 1-on-1. We had a small Governor's Crime Prevention Council grant that served students who were court involved. And from there, in 1998, the executive director at that time found an opportunity called Communities in Schools. She was doing some research online and she found Communities in Schools and she presented it to the board. We're governed by a board of directors, and the board voted at that time to change our name to Communities in Schools and adopt the business and program standards of Communities in Schools. Communities in Schools is a national organization. Our national office is in Arlington, Virginia, and we have a state office in Raleigh. We have what's called affiliates all across the nation. And so since 1998, we've been Communities and Schools of Wilkes County, and we've served strictly in Wilkes County's school district with programs and services for kids from kindergarten all the way up to college.
As a little oversight for a layman, what do you do?
What we do is we provide programs and services for students to stay in school. Our mission is to keep students in school. That is the bottom line. People like to go to the bottom line. Well, the bottom line for us is our mission is to break down barriers for students so that they can focus on learning and teachers can focus on teaching. We have a unique position in that we help students to, whatever the barriers may be, we identify those barriers and then we attempt to break those barriers down with programs and services. And those programs and services can be, we have lunch buddies in the elementary schools, we have mentoring and tutoring, we have site coordination, we give scholarships to 6th graders to go to Wilkes Community College when they graduate high school. That's tremendous.
Really?
Yes.
How does that work?
Well, we have actually a steering committee that steering committee is comprised of business leaders, and they help us to solicit donors to give. The scholarship is for $1,000, and that funding will fund a student in the 6th grade when they graduate to go to Wilkes Community College. Well, we know that $1,000 would nowhere near cover the tuition and fees at Wilkes for a college degree for associates. So we have a coordinator of that program, and she helps the students with FAFSA, applying for grants, and so whatever the FAFSA, whatever other grants did not cover, then Communities and Schools comes in and covers the rest. So they have tuition free of a scholarship to get a degree at Wilkes Community College. Been very, very successful.
Okay. Glendora Yarbrough, Executive Director of Communities and Schools. Another question is the staff. Tell us, back up to your calling to join.
To how I became an employee of Communities and Schools? Well, I'm going on my 16th year, and I've always worked in the for-profit world, in the business world, and I had a daughter that was a teenager, and I wanted her to see what it was like to give back. And so I actually started volunteering for communities and schools before I ever became an employee. I volunteered, I told you that they had that Governor's One-on-One program.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I actually volunteered for that program. And they sent out a little newsletter, and they sent out a newsletter that said that they were looking for a coordinator of one of their programs. And I just decided that I was going to apply for that. Had never worked in that field before, and I applied for it. And in my interview with the executive director, I said this to her, and I've never imagined that I would say it. I said, you go ahead and continue to look for who you think would be best for this position, but I can tell you right now that this position is meant for me. The Lord has called me to this. And she said when I left that she was blown away that I had the nerve to say that. I was blown away that I had the nerve to say that. But anyway, that job...
You felt called.
I did, and I've never looked back. So that I became the program coordinator, and I stayed in that position for 3 or 4 years, and the executive director, she decided to start a family, and she and her husband had said that when they started a family that she was going to be a stay-at-home mom. And so she said, I'd like to train you to be the executive director. And so I've been the executive director, I guess, for 10 or 12 years now.
Ms. Yarbrough, the executive director plays lots of roles and has lots of responsibility. Just 2 or 3 things that we might want to know about how do you do, what's the day like, or just give us some idea of what drives the director to be a great leader.
I think that for me, that the biggest role that I play is support of my staff, to let my staff shine. I think that an executive director that's a true leader is in the background and is the driving force. I have rock stars on my staff. They are.
Do you really?
I do, and they know it. I just emailed them Monday afternoon to say I am so proud of y'all. And I think that is a true leader, someone that encourages their staff. There is a lot of responsibility, but the role, I feel like the main role to communities and schools executive director is to allow the staff to shine, to give them the tools that they need to do their job so well that they're shining within the community.
And our office, where is it?
The office is in the back of the school administrative office building on Cherry Street, which is a blessing. We have a really nice space back there, and the school system gives it to us in kind, free of charge. We actually have a dance room. We have a dance program that is for young ladies 3rd grade on up, and on Monday afternoons they have a dance room that is as good as any dance studio in Wilkes County. The dance floor, the wall, the mirrors, the bars, and we provide leotards and tights and recitals, which is nothing to do with academics, but you know what? It gives them some confidence.
Confidence, dance.
Yes, we're a confidence builder at communities and schools. We try to build confidence in our students because I was just watching a video earlier this week of this new motivational speaker, and he was talking about the shootings and suicide among our young people, and he said that they were lonely. Loneliness is what the main thing for our young people, and that they needed somebody to care about them and give them confidence. And when I was watching that video, I thought, that is communities and schools. That's what we do. Our goal is to keep students in school by creating relationships with caring adults for them.
A word I see, at risk. Share with our viewers today, what is at risk?
Well, I'm going to be honest and say that I feel like that we were all born at risk of some sort. I don't really like that title. It's a title, I guess, that's in our business that we use through communities and schools, but At risk means there's some factors that are causing our students to maybe be at risk of dropping out of school,
Okay.
whether it's a single parent family, whether it's poverty. Poverty is a huge factor within our community of our students that but I didn't grow up wealthy. I didn't grow up but we had no idea that we were probably in poverty. We had caring family. We had, families that cared about us. And I think that maybe one of the at-risk factors is not having the support of their family around them.
We were, Ms. Yarbrough, a minute ago, we were on staff. I want you to go back and revisit that and just give us some idea of the different roles these individuals play.
Absolutely, because our staff has grown. When I first began at communities and schools, we only had two or three employees. We have 14 now. And that's due for expansion and also for grants that we write. In 2012, we expanded into Alexander County. And with that, we gained...
Is this the expansion you're talking about, changing the name?
Well, that's one reason, but we're also in the early process of expanding into Ashe County.
Okay.
We're on the move. There's so many students that need the programs and services that communities and schools provides, and the data proves that we're making a difference. We're making a difference with graduation rates. We're making a difference with school attendance. We're making a difference with behaviors. We have proof of that, and because of that, schools are seeking us out, saying we want you to come into our communities.
Wow.
So that's why we're changing our name to Communities and Schools of Northwest North Carolina, so that it can encompass our areas that Ashe County, Wilkes County, Alexander County, and who knows where the next counties will be. We're just open. We have an amazing board that's open to the vision of their executive director. I'm never satisfied with the status quo, I guess. There's always a student, and I don't care if a student is in Wilkes County, Ashe County, or Alexander County, they're a student, and they need help. And we're there to serve. We're a serving organization. But getting back to our staff, so we have, because we just got a huge grant from AT&T that we're very proud of. It's a $500,000 grant for 2 years.
Wow.
And that was to serve our high schools.
How'd you do that?
We wrote it.
Internally?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we did.
How big a...
It was huge.
Let me tell
you the odds of getting it. One of our staff members did the odds. Okay, so AT&T gave out 18 grants nationally. I think they had over 600 applicants. They gave out 18. 2 were given in North Carolina, 1 in rural Wilkes County, and 1 in Raleigh. And I think the odds of us getting it was like 6%. And so you know what I'd like to say? No matter what the odds are, apply for it. You never know if you're going to get it. But it's to serve our high schools. So we're serving all 5 high schools in Wilkes County and 2 high schools in Alexander County with that grant. So that gave us 2 more employees for the high schools. We also, through that grant, obtained a volunteer recruiter. And so what his role is going to be is to recruit volunteers for us. That's going to be his sole goal, to recruit volunteers for both counties, or 3 if we move into Ashe County. And we got a resource director, which is huge for us. We've never had that position for someone to concentrate on getting funding for us, because the needs are great.
You call that a resource?
A resource director. And her role is to make contact with donors, to see what where the community is in giving back, and to identify those. And she and I work closely together with that. And so we have those staff members. We have what we call site coordinators. They're embedded in the school. They're at Moravian Falls Elementary, North Wilkesboro Elementary, and Central Middle in Wilkes County, and into the 2 middle schools in Alexander County. And they broker in programs and services into the schools all day long. So it's a unique position in that they're not paid by the school system. They're paid through communities and schools, and so they identify, the principal and the school counselors, they identify needs and come to communities and schools and say, can you help us
I
with
wanted to
this?
ask you about the relationship with the school systems. Is there a designated person in the system that partners with communities and schools, or how you do that?
Well, we're all our whole staff is, but I just met with the school superintendent yesterday, and that's very important because communities and schools, I would say 99.5% of the time, is started because the school superintendent recognizes the value of communities and schools and wants communities and schools in their district. And so I met with
Mark Bird?
Yes, I met with him yesterday.
Outstanding.
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 Wonderful. And said, gave him an update of what all we're doing in our school. And I said to him, my goal for 2017 is to strengthen the partnership between communities and schools and Wilkes County School District. Tell me what you need. And he said, let me think on that, and I'm going to get back to you for what I need. And so I'm the contact person, but each one of those site coordinators that's inside that school, they actually report to the principal. It's a unique position in that I'm their executive director, but they know that principal, they're there to serve the principal and the school and the students.
Wow. So your staff, do you meet a lot? Do you have like teams come together?
We
Tell
do.
us how that works.
Well, we have staff development once a month. We're actually going to have one this coming Friday. And for 2017, for this school year, I divided our staff up into teams. And so each team is responsible for a staff development each month. So we have once a month, and it's all day long that we meet. Ours is this coming Friday, and the team that's over that has brought in a really unique opportunity. They've brought in some speakers to talk about human trafficking.
Wow.
So, yes, and so we decided that we couldn't keep that to ourselves, and so we've invited police officers, and so we've got 40 people coming for that particular part of our staff development. So that's going to be something very, very exciting for us.
Is it open to the public?
Would you like to come?
Maybe.
Yes.
Would we need to try to promote that,
yes.
let people know
that
the door's open?
It is. We are serving lunch, and so we'd really like to know if you're going to come. It's from 10:30 to 12:30 on Friday.
Human trafficking.
Yes. Because, people think that human trafficking is only in like a big city, and we know from experience that it's here in Wilkes County as well. And so we want to educate people on what human trafficking is, so we brought some experts in to talk about it.
Wow. As I studied for today, I had an outline that said we're talking about hope. Stay in school, achieve in life, mentors. I was in last weekend, I'm a big C-SPAN fan on the cable. And Thomas Friedman, one of the most outstanding authors in America, said that young professionals today that are the happiest are those that are doing internships and finding a mentor at the same time. So let's talk about mentorship a little bit.
Let's talk about that a little bit. And you're talking about, when you talk about interns, one of the things that we do in our office as well, which I don't know that you're specifically talking about this, but we have interns from the college.
You do?
And a lot of times we hire those interns. So a lot of our employees started out as an intern. So when you're thinking about interning through Wilkes Community College, think about communities and schools because it could potentially lead to a full-time position. So that's probably not what you were wanting to talk about, but I wanted to put a little plug in for that.
Sure.
But I do want to talk about mentoring and the importance of it, because if done correctly, mentoring works. If done incorrectly, I think it causes more damage as if it never even started. So one of the things that we like to stress with our volunteers is if you start as a mentor, we want you to carry that through. Not because our children are already let down enough. And so we really stress that once you start that mentoring ship with a child, that you follow through with it, that you have an ending date, that they know it's ending, that it's not something that they've done that causes that. But speaking of mentoring, I wanted to tell you about one of the wonderful things that, a success story, if you will, with one of our mentors. So one of the school counselors called us and said that she had a high school senior who had been homeless. And in the state of North Carolina, there used to be a law that you had to do a senior project. You had to complete a senior project to graduate from high school. Well, North Carolina did away with that law, but Wilkes County schools did not. So still in Wilkes County schools, you have to have a senior project to be able to graduate from school. And that senior project, you have to have a mentor, you have to present to a panel and be judged on it. Well, she said this young lady did not have a senior project and she was not going to graduate from high school because of that, and she wondered if communities and schools could help. So we said absolutely, send her to our office. She came to our office, and we put her with our New Century Scholar coordinator, and through a series of conversations, we decided that, and she worked with in my office some, she decided, even though she had been homeless, that she wanted to try to talk to businesses about getting some snacks for one of our after-school programs. So I fixed her up a little name tag that had her name on it with Communities and Schools logo, gave her some receipts of donation, gave her a narrative of what to say, and sent her out. And she went to Food Line and Lowe's and Big Lots and Save a Lot, and she said her name and said, I'm with Communities and Schools, would you donate? And they said absolutely. She came back to our office. She had the front seat, passenger side, the back seat, and the trunk loaded with snacks. We thought that was incredible, but the story doesn't end there. So she brings it all in, and we help, she's working on her senior project, and as she's working on it, it's around prom time. And her mentor, which is a New Century Scholar coordinator, says to her, so are you going to the prom? And she said, oh no, I'm not going to the prom. I don't have a dress, and I couldn't get my hair fixed. I don't have the money to get my hair fixed. Well, number one, we had prom dresses at the office. So she took her in there.
You do?
Yep, we had prom dresses at the office. So we took her in there. She tried on a few prom dresses, found one that fit her. The coordinator of that program, that was her mentor, said it needed a little sewing done. She did that for her. One of the other program coordinators said, I'll get you into my hairstylist to get your hair done, and I'll pay for it. Got her hair done. She went to the prom. She won prom queen. How incredible is that? Now that is a success story. That young lady was and now she's graduated and she's in her first year of college. So that was year before last, but you know what? She had been homeless and she decided to focus on somebody other than herself. And it paid off. So that's a part of how mentoring works.
Wow. I wonder, when she was homeless, we just don't know we have no idea, do we?
No, sir, we do not. We serve children that are homeless, and we've served children that couldn't get to school on time and just found out all they needed was an alarm clock. We've served students who was afraid to stand and wait on the bus in the dark.
Right.
And we've gone and stood with them. It's just building that confidence, finding out what the barrier is and breaking it down.
Are you most identifiable with lunch buddies? That's a good thing.
It is a good thing. It is a good thing. And that's how we started. And so
That's how we did start.
And we were founded in 1998. North Wilkesboro Elementary was our very first lunch buddy school. Now we're in all 13 elementary schools. People do know us by lunch buddies, but we are much, much more than that. But that is our founding program, and we are known for lunch buddies. And teachers say that kids who have a lunch buddy raise their hand more in class. And principals say that kids who have a lunch buddy come to school more because they're afraid they're going to miss their lunch buddy if they don't come to school. Well, we know that if they're in school, they're probably learning more.
Do most employers readily promote going, if an individual goes and says, I want to be a lunch buddy, and Ms. Yarbrough is asked me to do this, and is it likely to be a big encouragement
It
there?
is a big encouragement, and I'll tell you that some banks have even said, we'll let our tellers go, and they go like different days of the week, because you don't have an identified day. You can go any day of the week that you'd like. And employers say that adults who are lunch buddies come back to school, come back to work happier, so it benefits them too. And just a little story, a lunch buddy told me one time that she was eating lunch with her lunch buddy, and she said, well, what would you like to be when you grow up? And she said that lunch buddy sat there for a minute and said, I think I'll be a lunch buddy when I grow up. Well, what a compliment was that?
Wow.
Yeah.
Volunteers.
We always need volunteers. We need volunteers for the lunch buddies, the mentoring, and the way that the volunteer process is you would contact Tiger Posey in our office, and he would start the process. I mean, we have an application that you complete. It's almost like a job application. You have to have 4 references. If one were to come back negative, we reserve the right to not allow you to be a volunteer. We do that to protect our students and our reputation. I tell my staff regularly that we are 30 years into building our reputation. It would take 30 seconds to ruin it.
Yep.
Unfortunately, that's just the way the world is.
Yeah.
And especially if you're in a serving organization like we are. But they fill out an application. We do a criminal background check. We have a training. And then we say, if you're going to be a lunch buddy, what school are you close to during the day? Are you close to CC Wright?
The lunch buddies also in high school?
No.
No?
Our research has found that students, once they get in the 4th grade, they're a little embarrassed.
Okay.
We have lunch programs in our middle and high schools where an adult could come and talk about maybe time management or something like that during the lunchtime. But as far as just lunch,
Thank you. I understand that. Yeah. Peer pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely,
Sure.
because when you're in elementary and you have a lunch buddy, you're the coolest thing going. But if you were in middle and you had a lunch buddy, people would be like, "Why?
What's
wrong?"
Here?
Yeah. There's a stigma.
Let's talk about funding.
Woo.
And that's a key. We all know it takes resources to do a lot of good things. So let's talk about opportunities for folks who might be with us today that have a few opportunities to help us. Ms. Yarbrough.
Absolutely, yes. Well, our funding is made up of grants, writing grants, and grants are restricted to where they need to go. You know, they tell you where to spend it. For donors, individual donors, and those we have more flexibility to spend those on maybe healthy snacks or things like that. And then for fundraisers, we have 2 chicken queues a year. We have a Headed to College race. We're going to have a lip sync battle March the 16th. So we have fundraisers, and our budget right now is running about $650,000.
So we have opportunities, and this has been such a wonderful experience for us today. And thank you for being here. And we want to thank Wilkes Communications and River Street and WIFM. And your life has been enriched with communities and schools. And if you will, take about 15 seconds and tell us that story.
Yes,
Glendora Yarbrough.
Yes.
I'm gonna make
Yeah.
sure
You
that
got
we
it.
know who you
Yes,
are.
absolutely, Glendora Yarbrough, and which that's not the important part. The important part is that I get paid for doing this. You know, we all should be able to do something that we enjoy so much that we say, they pay me to do this. It's tough some days, but the days that we see the success in our students is the days that we go out of the office high-fiving each other. And the days that we have students, I have a staff member that will say, I don't know if it's that full moon, but my students are spiraling out of control. And that's when we huddle together and say, what can we do? What do we need to bring? What extra needs to happen? And we brainstorm. So it's just, I have been enriched by communities and schools. And I hope that, you know, I like to think, what would happen to this community if communities and schools wasn't here?
It'll never die with your leadership. Thank you very much. And,
Thank you.
Come back
Thank
again.
You. Thank you.
Bye-bye.